Hello there, how are you guys doing? Hopefully you are all doing well. My name is Marc Gallagher. For those who don't know me, I'm a ukulele player from Manchester who does my own songs. I do cover videos and collaborations with people in the ukulele world and beyond, as well as some other general musical content. Currently, I am in isolation from COVID-19 and I've missed out on a few gigs this weekend, so I thought I'd do a little video instead just to keep myself occupied. It's a shame because one of said gigs this weekend actually involves me playing guitar. You see, I'm not just a ukulele player. If you saw my video the other day, which I showed all my instruments, you'll notice that I also play guitar, bass, piano, saxophone, amongst other things, but ukulele is very much nowadays my main instrument. I played guitar in an acoustic duo until 2016, in which the duo split up and I needed to re-establish myself as a solo act. It was during this time that I chose to play ukulele. It was an instrument I was having more fun playing. I was playing a lot of open mic nights around the city and it was easier to carry around than this thing. And as a result, I very seldom gig with guitar. It's not my main instrument anymore and I'm quite out of practice with it. So what happened? My friend Kelly, under her stage name of Tiger Heart, started doing acoustic gigs and she wanted me to accompany her. In the spirit of sort of like separating my brand from hers, I didn't want to kind of play ukulele because I didn't want there to be any sort of crossover in that regard, so I chose to play guitar. I thought it would come across as more professional, more versatile, as like a function sort of outfit type thing. So, and also I just wanted that separation of brands like I mentioned. However, as I've stated, I've already kind of unlearned guitar, so a lot of this process was me having to practice this instrument that I used to get paid to play, and it was really strange, you know, going from this being what I used to do full time to, how do I do an F chord? It was really strange. And it was also from my practices and my rehearsals with Kelly that I realised that us ukulele players are not that far removed from our six-stringed brethren, and there are many skills on guitar that I think are transferable to ukulele that we don't necessarily consider. With all that in mind, my name is Marc Gallagher and these are 5 things that playing guitar has taught me about ukulele. Number 5, fretting all the strings all the time. This is something that was a huge problem for me and I only kind of just realised it just a few weeks ago. I'm very used to the caged chord shapes of C, G, A, E, D and their various permutations, and I would take those and use them in barred context. So if I need to play an A but not do this, I would take my E shape and then I'd play it 5 frets up. A chord, standard stuff. My problem was I felt like I needed to play all 6 strings all the time with every chord, and it was only until I had a guitar lesson recently that I realised that it's actually encouraged to not necessarily do so. My query came from diminished 7 chords. I first learnt about them while playing ukulele. I know this shape and I could replicate it on guitar, but I wanted something that would incorporate the other 2 strings. Upon looking the other shapes up, I realised they were all just 4-string shapes because there are only 4 notes in this chord. And it's from seeing this and seeing other shapes online, and also just seeing like some of the ways in which my peers were playing guitar at open mics. So it's from this I realised that rather than playing a D right up here using this bar shape and just all this pressure and all these notes, I could just do a 3-note chord that drops the 5th and just does something like this. Because the other notes are either going to be played by other members of your ensemble, or the notes are just going to be implied, and that sparsity is sometimes a good thing. So how do we all relate this to ukulele? Basically, we just need to take our shapes, not necessarily the barred ones, and just mess around with those in some open positions. I would start with things like drone strings, and knowing when you can use open strings to your advantage in some more complex chords. So for instance, one of my favourite things to do is taking this A shape and then going up in thirds. So I'm going 2 and 1, 4 and 2, 6 and 4, 7 and 6, and I can go on so far up the A major scale. And I do this in a couple of songs of mine, one of them being Mademoiselle. Mademoiselle. And I'm using the open strings, E and A, to my advantage as those drone strings. One other effect you could have is take something like the C shape and bar that along, but leave the G string open and see what effect that drone has. Making a larger thing, because I've got a low G, I've got that sort of bassiness to it. Number 4, not strumming all the strings all the time. As ukulele players, it's very common for us to just kind of strum through all the strings all the time, and there isn't really any variance. Yet when I was playing guitar, I realized that you can actually create so much more by showing some restraint. So instead of just going through all 6 strings all the time with no variance or dynamics, I can instead do something that I remember seeing in one of my first beginner guitar DVDs that I had. And it sort of likened the idea of sort of percussive elements like the kick and snare, and it basically describes sort of the lower strings you can think of as the kick and the higher strings you can think of as the snare, and rhythmically you can strum in a way that accents these different parts of your string set and to get different sonic results. So an example would be something like kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare. And the same thing can be applied to ukulele. So let's apply the same concept. Kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare. It's one of the reasons why I really struggle with transcribing some of the arrangements that I have, because I don't strum all the strings all the time, especially when I'm picking, and I'll have these odd little moments where I'm just isolating a part of my string set for musical reasons, and it's something that I think you could bear in mind to make your playing a bit more rhythmic. Number 3, palm muting. This is following on from our earlier point about sort of keeping it rhythmic and keeping it dynamic, and that was something that Kelly and I were doing in our arrangements. We'd do something like Crazy by Niles Barkley. I remember when I remember when I lost my mind. So I think palm muting is absolutely essential. It's something that I rarely, if ever, see on ukulele, especially amongst beginners. So for those who don't know, palm muting is where you take your palm, the lower side here, and not describing what your palm is, I'm describing this specific part like. So take this part of your hand and place it towards the bridge of your guitar, not on the saddle, but place it within about an inch, 2 to 3 centimeters from the saddle. If you place your hand there and then strum, you've got that sort of muffled sound. From having this dampened sound, it's a little bit like playing a soft pedal on a piano or something. It's got that sort of effect, it dampens the notes, and we can have some interplay between these dampened and undampened notes. For example, so on that 4 and, what I'm doing is I'm releasing and then putting it back on. That's where I'm getting that rhythmic element from. Like I said, I barely ever see palm muting done in the ukulele world because we're so used to having this like pendulum motion with our hand and our forearm, so we rarely kind of stick it to just the wrist. But let's give it a try. I'm finding that for ukulele, I'm having to use this sort of part of my hand instead of on guitar where I kind of use this part. So try and use that maybe, just to compensate for like the height difference. And then from this we can have our interplay between the palm muted notes and the non-palm muted strikes. Number 2, the use of plectrum and separating the thumb from fingers. Almost exclusively I play ukulele with my fingers and play guitar with a plectrum, and the differences between them are so drastic. But one of the things I felt like I was missing out on the most while I was playing guitar was the separation that I had between the thumb and the rest of my strumming hand. Let me explain. So usually we're holding our pick and we don't really use our other fingers, so we just kind of keep that in a little bit of a fist and then we strum away. We've only got one point of contact really on our strings, which is just the form of the plectrum. When I'm playing ukulele, however, I'm strumming mainly with these first 2 fingers, and then I'm following up sometimes with my thumb. The most obvious example of this could be seen in something like a triplet stroke, in which I'm going down, thumb, up, down, thumb, up, down, thumb, up. But what I also like to do a lot is I often will pick notes often on the lower strings using my thumb. So you might have heard there, just to slow it down, I was going pick, strum, pick, up, strum, pick, strum, pick, up, strum. I do this so much in my ukulele playing in general, things like and that stuff would be really difficult to demonstrate using a plectrum because they'd have to do very deliberate movements to this lower string, such as and this kind of leans into the number 5 entry due to the sort of the separation of the lower and higher strings, that sort of kick and snare element. But you can do it to much more of a subtler degree when fingerpicking or when strumming with your thumb. Number 1. Bar chords. I can't believe I've been doing bar chords wrong my entire life. So over the last few years, as I've been getting progressively worse at guitar, one of the things that's really halted my progress in sort of coming back to it was playing bar chords. I'd be playing them, playing things like a G down here or a D minor up here. And I would find that after just a few minutes, I'd get a lot of pain around this area. It really hurt, and sometimes I'd be trying to sort of stretch my thumb to try and make it work, but it was just, I'd get so much pain here. And it wasn't until I had a guitar lesson the other week with Dave Speakman that it kind of changed everything. Dave saw me play an A chord here, and he had a look at it and looked at my hand position, and he said, well, yeah, Mark, you're pushing with your thumb. And I was like, isn't that the entire point? I'm using this to push against here. That's how bar chords work, right? To which he raised the excellent point of using different muscles. He mentioned that you've got all these muscles in your back, you've got all these larger muscles in your arm here. Why are you using tiny little muscle in your thumb here? So instead of me pushing with my thumb, what I should instead be doing is using the muscles here in my arm and in my back to pull the hand closer to the neck. I should be able to do this chord without even touching with my thumb. And honestly, this has been the single biggest game changer of like me having a guitar lesson like 8 years after I last had one when I was still a teenager. So if you find yourself struggling with bar chords on ukulele, especially if it's pain around here, then try not to push with your thumb. Instead, use the muscles in your back and arm and just pull your hand on the neck. You should be able to do this without touching the neck with your thumb. Notice how my thumb is off there. Obviously the ukulele has less strings, softer strings, and less tension due to the shorter scale length, but the same concept applies, and we can still make bar chords for ourselves so much easier, especially if you are finding yourself having pain like that. So there you have it, those are 5 things that playing guitar taught me ukulele. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like it, share it if you feel so compelled to, but most importantly, let me know in the comments if you've learned something from this, because I found that thing about bar chords absolutely game changing. Thank you to all my supporters on Patreon, but I'd especially like to shout out Tim Manison, Brad Endicott, Christine Rockweber, Pete McCarthy, Susan Harder, Belinda Blado, Patty Dawson, Nicole Redinger, Kirsten Demchuk, and Paolo Scalini. If you also want to help support the things that I do, you can go to patreon.com/MarcGallagherMusic and you can pledge your pledge from as little as $3 a month. Your donations get you various perks and tips in return. Other free ways to support me includes liking my Facebook page, following me on Instagram, or subscribing to my YouTube channel. All of those are at Marc Gallagher Music. Until next time, my name is Marc Gallagher. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye.